Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I am your host, Mike, and in this episode, I'm going to be talking about Transformers War for Cybertron EARTHRISE. Now, this review reaction video will contain some spoilers. I'll try not to give everything away, but War for Cybertron EARTHRISE starts up where Siege left off. You have the Autobots adrift in space on the Ark. They're all in stasis lock. Meanwhile, Elita 1 is leading her small band of Autobots back on Cybertron, and those Autobots are Jetfire and Red Alert. And they're going on hit and run missions where they do end up encountering Megatron. At one point, Megatron actually takes Elita 1 and the group hostage. Megatron has an overall plan in this arc, and that overall plan is to shut down sectors of Decepticon territory that aren't producing, and using those Decepticons for one devious plan. And that one devious plan is to make his own ship, the Nemesis. Megatron is going to do that by harvesting the sparks and using the chassis of dead Autobots and Decepticons. Meanwhile, the Autobots on the Ark are taken by mercenaries. Why? Because these mercenaries, led by Double Dealer, are on a mission. They are working for Quintesson. And that Quintesson's name is Decius. Now, Decius, as we know from Faces of Darkness, where the Quintessons had their first Transformers TV series appearance, although their first actual appearance was in Transformers the movie, which came out 35 years ago, and they were judge, jury, and executioner for Cup and several other wayward robots, including Hot Rod, who would eventually become Rodimus Prime. But these mercenaries come on board the Ark. They take the Ark to the base of Decius, and, well, Decius has a plan. Decius wants the Autobots and Decepticons to be enslaved once again because Decius was thrown out of the Quintesson ranks. But of course, it's not one mind, it's five minds trying to work as one, and they all have differences. So, what does Decius do? Decius gets rid of the other four talking heads where there's only one, leaving that one to decide the fate of Optimus Prime and the Autobots. And that fate is for them to become slaves. But Double Dealer has other things in mind, and he helps Optimus and the Autobots escape back on the Ark. Meanwhile, back on Cybertron, Elita 1 and her small band of Autobots are going in search of Autobots who are in prison. Yet, when they finally get to these different sectors that are also being shut down, they realize that these aren't Autobots. They're actually Decepticons that Megatron has imprisoned. These Decepticons are freed. Elita agrees to take them with him to freedom to fight against Megatron. Of course, what eventually ends up happening is Megatron tries to cut a deal with Elita 1 after finding out that she has these Decepticons who are being held prisoner. And Megatron even unveils his master plan of harvesting the sparks of Autobots and Decepticons and building the Ark. And all hell ends up breaking loose later on as Jetfire and the other Autobots are freed after being captured, and everybody's trying to escape. Meanwhile, back on the Ark, the Autobots encounter an old space bridge in the Nebulon system, and there's a station inside this space bridge. The space bridge has been on for many cycles. And Nebulon Station has one section of it in Nebulon space, the other section on this planet. Bumblebee and Optimus Prime go to investigate, but what they do not know upon arriving on Nebulon Station, along with the other Autobots, that they have awoken a creature that hides within Nebulon Station. And that creature turns out to be Scorponok. Now, this is a different iteration of Scorponok as compared to the Beast Wars version or the G1 version. Although, this iteration of Scorponok is pretty much the classics version of Scorponok. If you've seen pictures of the action figure, I did before doing this live. So, what ends up happening is Scorponok ends up attacking the Autobots because he views them as intruders to his home. He's the last of his kind. He has been enslaved by the Quintessons. There's no love between him and the Quintessons. But you know who ends up showing up after being able to launch his ship, the Nemesis? Well, Megatron ends up showing up. And he's thinking, well, this is a perfect opportunity to attack the Autobots because they seem a little distracted. But of course, Scorponok sees the Decepticons as intruders and starts attacking them as well. Meanwhile, back on Cybertron, Jetfire, Red Alert, and Elita 1, along with the free Decepticons, are trying to make one last stand against Shockwave and those loyal to Megatron. But is it all for naught? We don't know. We don't know. We're given, a little cliffhanger on that part of the story as it focuses on what's going on in Nebulon Station with the Autobots and Decepticons encountering Scorponok. At one point, there was a plan that came up before the Decepticons arrived, where the Autobots would separate sections of the space station, the one section that's in Nebulon space, the other section that's on this planet, by using explosives to do a precise divide of the station so they can go through with the arc. Well, unfortunately, they have to use some of those explosives against Scorponok. They end up doing so, which injures Megatron, and Optimus is also with Megatron at the time. Megatron and Optimus have some dialogue. Megatron reminds Prime of why he's so weak and why Megatron is superior to him and why he must lead. But of course, Megatron also has a wound, which Optimus does help Megatron with. Wheeljack eventually patches him up once Megatron and Optimus are discovered. They end up going through the space bridge after shenanigans are ensued by Starscream, and Starscream, being Starscream, betrays Megatron, fires at the Ark and the space bridge, and it creates this area of space called Dead Space. Now, there's also another story that pops up in Earthrise, and that's of Skylynx and Alpha Trion. Skylynx, being an egotistical maniac, feels that he's more suited for the matrix of leadership than anyone else. Unfortunately, his arrogance gets him banished into the Dead Space Zone by Alpha Trion. And that leads to where the Ark is now after going through the space bridge and Starscream screwing the plans up. The Ark ends up inside Dead Space, as does the Nemesis, where Optimus encounters Skylynx. Skylynx reminds Prime of why he must continue on his quest to find the Allspark and why Prime must be leader. Meanwhile, Megatron encounters himself from the future, and that future version of him is Galvatron. Galvatron tries to give Megatron some information on the future. Megatron is being stubborn, doesn't believe that it's his future self. A fight ensues, Galvatron eventually manages to talk himself down and tell him about a future where he's enslaved, but he has a way for Megatron to change said future. Because for Galvatron, just like in Transformers the movie, Galvatron is still enslaved by Unicron. And Galvatron wants to come to the past, change the past, so he is not enslaved by the Chaos Bringer himself. Unfortunately for Galvatron, that doesn't seem to work out, as Unicron is wise to his plan, pulls him back into his future, and then the Nemesis and the Ark proceed their way to a blue ball orbiting a certain star. That blue ball is Earth. The Autobots and Decepticons have to work together when power on either ship is out. The mercenaries show up, and DCS has taken control of Double Dealer. Double Dealer is no longer himself. Double Dealer is being controlled to where the Ark is under attack by first the mercenary ship, and then it's under attack by the Nemesis. A fight ensues between Optimus and Megatron on the Ark. Megatron ends up taking something that Optimus holds very dear. And that something very dear is the Matrix of Leadership. Because there's a flashback scene of Ultra Magnus, Optimus, Megatron, and Alphatron. And Alphatron is trying to decide which one of them is worthy to bear the Matrix of Leadership. And of course, we all know that Optimus is the bearer of the Matrix, but unfortunately, Megatron takes the Matrix, goes back to the Nemesis. Cog, as a matter of fact, is sucked out into space due to a hull breach caused by the mercenary ship. He ends up on the mercenary ship and dies a hero. So, what ends up happening after that is the mercenary ship explodes, sending both the Nemesis and the Ark down toward Earth's surface. And that's where they leave off the episode. Yes, there is a little bit more, but I don't want to spoil the whole episode for you. But what did I think of Earthrise? Overall, it wasn't bad. I felt that Siege started off better with its 6 episodes. These 6 episodes in Earthrise weren't bad. I did think that the voice overs were done a little slower in this one, which for some characters it benefited, and other characters not so much. Some characters like Ironhide got to speak a little more, and of course you had Hound. And I honestly think that you could have reversed the voices for Ironhide and Hound to make them, I don't know, more G1 accurate. But I know this is a separate continuity, and you know, for a show that's taking place in a separate continuity, it's doing a good job so far. But as far as which one of these two I like the best so far, right now Siege is the number one. But I do highly recommend that you watch Earthrise. Earthrise, it's good. There are parts of it that are slow, but they're slow for a reason. They're slow to give you some information to let you know what's going on. And you actually get to see some of what's going on both Cybertron, the Ark, and when the Autobots are held captive. And, you get to see Megatron's plan unfold for the Nemesis. So it's very good. I recommend this series for anyone who is a fan of Transformers, who loves to see, more Transformers character show up, and also some of the lore in Transformers show up. There's the Matrix of Leadership. There's a discussion that Prime won't always be the leader of the Autobots. And the fact that you get confirmation that Megatron will at one point become Galvatron. So, again, I highly recommend this series for anyone who's a Transformers fan, even if you're not a Transformers fan, but you are curious to see what a more adult oriented show might be like. Well, this is it for you. Yeah, it's rated TV Y7, but trust me, with what goes on in this series, it's more adult oriented, especially when you have the characters curse every now and then, and also seeing many other uses of character models die over and over and over again. But it's a good series. I highly recommend it. So until next time, this is Mike for Pacific414 episode review. Thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw here, please give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with your friends. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. And subscribe to the Pacific414 YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. And hope you have yourself a good day, good evening, good morning, good night. Take care.